Hey everybody, JJ Barrows here, coming to you, well, not live, but the day before this episode is going to be released. I am actually currently in Bryce Canyon. We're at Rainbow Point. It does look very rainbowy if you're watching my video on YouTube, kind of showing you the sights here. We stopped at a little camp spot to make dinner. We got some Mountain House freeze-dried food getting prepared by Chef Josh Newton. Josh is making the Mountain House down there. So if you hear the crackling, that's what's happening. It's actually quite delicious. This is not a Mountain House ad, although it could be if they want to contact me. Just wanted to let you guys know I'm super excited about this episode because Lisa Gilbert, who actually is going to be sharing with us her story this episode, I am doing a live virtual comedy show with her this Sunday. Yeah, it might look like this, where I'm sitting in the back of my car on the side of the road just to do this comedy show. So hopefully not. We'll probably stay somewhere so that it can be a little more appropriate. I don't know what's appropriate, especially when it comes to comedy. But I am excited. It'll be my first virtual show since COVID, Corona happened, which means my first show since COVID and Corona happened. So about 5 months. I know they say fake it till you make it and act like you're super confident, like you've done this your whole life. But the truth is I haven't. And got to start by being real. That's how I feel comfortable, and that's how I got to show up. So yesterday was my birthday, so I did celebrate 37 years of life. So yeah, this episode we have Lisa Gilbert sharing. Lisa's episode is actually going to be a two-part episode because we got into some really interesting stuff, not just about her life and her experience raising triplets as a middle-aged woman, her words, but also the current climate that we're in and what it looks like to raise kids in the time of Corona, of homeschooling, all the tension that's there politically, and also the tension that's present racially and that has been for a long time, but is more recently, specifically this year, being paid attention to and being called to our awareness. And even the debates that's sparking, and in some ways it's odd to me that it's a debate and not a conversation. So I'm excited to talk to Lisa, to listen to Lisa, and to really hear her perspective as a woman of color, as a mom of triplets, as a comedian. So she has some great perspective. So thanks for tuning in this week. And this will be part one of Lisa sharing her story.
Hey everybody, Lisa Gilbert here, coming at you live from my bedroom. I'm going to share a little bit about my story, Hope and Waiting. So I was born a twin, separated from my twin at birth, and put into foster care, which came with all of whatever that came with. I was eventually adopted about the age of 4 by a single white mom, and she had a biracial daughter as well. So it was the three of us. And so moving forward then, right, I always wanted to adopt. I always wanted to have kids, and it just didn't happen. I married in my 20s, and that didn't work out after about a year. And then I didn't really date too much for another 20 years plus when I met my husband at church. But during that time, I was hoping really that a husband would come, but I also had a very full life. I was very involved in the church, and I served and just was really involved in my community. I was doing social work at the time. And so as you can imagine, that job was quite tasking, emotional, and so just really was into my career and into serving in the community. And I remember I was sitting in a training and I heard God say to stop dating. And I thought, whatever, he's probably talking to the girl next to me. Maybe I'm sitting close and I'm just hearing their conversation. And I'm like, I'm not going to stop dating. Like I'm not going to do that. And so I didn't. I waited another couple years. And then I decided, I think maybe that was God talking to me and maybe I should stop dating. And so I stopped dating and I served. I served in my church. I served in my community, as I said. And I just felt like I was kind of getting myself ready for a marriage, for a lifelong relationship and kids. And so 7 years later, I saw my husband at church and I asked him out on a date because I ain't got time to wait. I was already, in my 40s and he wasn't taking the hint. So I just asked him out. Asked him out for coffee. I was like, hey, you want to get coffee sometime? And he said, yeah, I don't drink coffee. I was like, all right, I guess he's not interested in me. He took my number anyway and then called and said, let's go to coffee. And so we dated for a year and we got married. He asked me to marry him 6 months in, and then 6 months after that we got married and pregnant on my honeymoon with triplets. I feel like my journey is a journey that a lot of women that I talk to that are single or have been engaged or dating for a long time, really hoping and waiting for this man to come. Feeling like that's kind of the end all be all, and then kids happen after that, and kind of then your life begins. And really, for me, it was the hope in that waiting that got me ready for where I am today, in that serving your friends and serving the community in a way that you would serve your husband and serve your kids and serve your family. There's a lot about marriage that's very selfless, that you do because that's what you want to do, and it's the right thing to do. And it really doesn't necessarily serve you, it serves your husband and it serves your children. And so taking that time to do that with my friends and do that in my church through outreach and ministry, and I did a lot of traveling and in other countries speaking to high schoolers about where they're at with whatever that hope is and what they're waiting for. Because hope and waiting isn't just about marriage and kids. The hope in waiting is about whatever it is that you're waiting for. And how do you prepare yourself for what that is? Once it lands in your lap, once it comes your way, once it knocks on your door, what are you going to do with that? How are you going to manage it and maneuver it? For me, I feel like my time building my relationship with God and building my relationships with friends and community really helped me for the difficult times in marriage and the difficult times in motherhood. And all of a sudden going from this career woman, single, and then at 44 years old, getting married and having triplets all in the same year, completely just, it's just really a lot of it in the beginning is just a fog of trying to deal with triplets and new husband, and it's a lot. And I feel like that what I did in that waiting, hoping for what's to come, made all the difference for me. I still have days where I don't feel like a good mom or wife. Well, I always feel like a good wife, but anyway, more sometimes I don't feel like the best mom, and I should be doing more or doing less or whatever that is. And I'm short-tempered with my husband when he needs something and I don't feel like doing it. But again, for me, that time that I spent preparing myself, and also what you're hoping for and what you're waiting for may not be. For me, there was always that maybe this was not what God had for me. That wasn't the plan. And so what was I going to do then if that didn't happen? And so spending that time getting ready for if it would, but also spending that time getting myself ready and prepared for if it wasn't going to happen. And at 44 years old, to be honest, I really didn't have a whole lot of time. In fact, I told my husband before we got married, look, I'm in my 40s. I'm already trying to adopt. So if you want to have kids, it's probably not going to be with me. So you should probably just move along and find yourself, a younger chick. And he said, no, we'll just wait and see what happens. And I'm like, yeah, it doesn't work that way, because 5 years down the line, I don't give you kids and you're going to be all mad and then you're going to leave me for a younger chick. So let's just end it now before you love me even more than you possibly think you could. And go on about your business and make yourself some babies. And then, we got pregnant on our honeymoon. But I think the biggest takeaway for me is there's always waiting for something that you'd like to happen. And what are you doing with that wait time? And what are you doing with that hope? We've all got hopes and dreams. We've all got things that we really want to happen in our lives at every stage, right? It may not be marriage. It could be a job. It could be whether to move from one state to another state. And maybe it's not just a job. Maybe it's a career or this incredible opportunity that you're just waiting and really working to get to. And so I would just say, figure out what you're going to do with that hope when it comes and the waiting for that hope to come.
Yeah, Lisa. I love it. I kept laughing. It's funny when you're like telling a story that involves laughter, but that's what we're learning with Zoom shows, especially when you can't hear the laughter. But
Yeah.
there were definitely laugh breaks, just so you know. Literally, all you have to do is say, yeah, 44, married and pregnant with triplets on my honeymoon. It's like,
yeah. Wait, what did you just say?
It's like, I don't even know where to begin to wrap my head around that.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. And then with that, I love that your story involves the fact that you say it was later in life, like you're 44, when even it looked different from what you originally, you said you were married when you were younger in your 20s, and even what you were hoping for looked different than your original attempt or assumption or go at, what you thought you wanted. And how
different that can look later in life, right? Because we're different from who we are when we're 20 versus when we're, when we're
I
in our 40s.
hope I'm different in my 20s than my 40s. Sometimes I do look at myself now. I'm going to be 53 next month. And sometimes I look at myself, I think, man, should I be doing that at this age? I mean, it feels like this is something that a 23-year-old would do. And yeah, I'm going to go with it.
Always yes, life is short.
Oh, yes. And then my knees remind me of my age. I'm like, that's why I wasn't supposed to be dancing on the beach. This is it right here.
But it's so good, especially in a culture where whether it's Hollywood or the entertainment industry in general celebrates youth. If you don't get it by a certain age, then you're not going to get it, whatever it is, for whoever. Yeah. And so the fact that you were 44, not only when you got married, but then had triplets. And after that, correct me if I'm wrong, but you started doing comedy after all of this, right? Like that was also a later in life pursuit.
Yeah. I just hit 5 years in April.
Oh, wow. So you got married, you had triplets, and then on top of also working full time, you started pursuing stand-up comedy.
Yes.
Would you say that it was because of your experience getting married at 44 and then having triplets at that age that provoked you to want to do comedy?
Well, I mean, I've always wanted to do comedy. I have been entertaining to some degree for as long as I can remember. Like if my relatives as far back as when I was adopted into this family here at 4 years old, 5 years old, they're like, yeah, you were always singing and dancing and performing. And so I think it's just always been what I want to do. I went to junior theater as a kid and just always wanted to be an actor, always wanted to be on stage, but I didn't always have the confidence to do it. And I hate to use the word support because then it makes it feel like my mom was like, you ain't gonna be nothing. She wasn't that at all, but she was a single mom. She worked a lot. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have the confidence enough to be like, you know what? I'm going to march up to the school and I'm going to tell them that I want to be part of the drama team. I wasn't that kid necessarily. I was definitely shy and I was quiet enough, but I wasn't that go-getter. I was a little nervous about being able to do that. And so I think it stopped me from pursuing, really what I wanted to do for a long time.
What do you think changed that confidence or that made the difference for you to be at least the person or the adult that was like, no, you know what? I'm going to try it. I'm going to do it.
Yeah. I think age, I'm definitely more confident now than I was back, in my 20s for sure. And the opportunity came in a way that was with somebody that I knew. So I felt like I was kind of going to be taken care of in the initial process. And I was. And then once I hit that stage, please, that was it.
Was it like the first time that
first time,
you went on?
Absolutely first time. There wasn't even a question after that of whether or not I was going to be on that stage again. The question was how often was I going to get to be on that stage again? Yeah.
That's amazing. So even that for me is encouraging or inspiring or whatever it is. Because I think, again, we live in a culture where even from a young age, we're constantly told or asked, what are you going to be when you grow up? It's always about what you're going to do next and how are you going to, pursue that. And I think people are really lucky if they do know from a young age. And if they do stay on that path, that's even more rare. But sometimes you hit your late 20s and you're like, I still don't know what I'm going to do with my life. And you feel like it's too late, but it's just not. Like it's never too late. And sometimes you're in a better position to start it at that point later in life because of what you said, like you had confidence later in life that you didn't have earlier that might have been what helped you because you're so lively on stage.
The crazy thing is that I started working with kids. That's my career. That's what I've done from 15. I just retired. So from 15 basically to 52, I worked with kids.
Wow. What have you done for that long?
Well, I taught preschool for a while, like 12 years or so. And then in fact, it was the only class in high school I took like an ROP class where it's like an on-the-job training class that you can take in like your senior year. The class I ever took that I got an A in, ever, was that child development class, ever. And so I had this career, right? My mother was a social worker. Like I had this career and I was happy in this career. Like there wasn't anything that I was like, oh, I wish I was this instead of this. I built this career and this life helping and working with families. However, there was just this other piece that I also always really wanted. And at any time, if, Whoopi Goldberg or Ellen would have said to me, hey, you know what? I know you like working with kids and families and it's a noble job, but would you like to come and be on this TV show? Yes, I would. Yes, I would.
That's a good way to put it. You can even be content in where you're at in life and still have a desire. Both can exist at the same time. It doesn't mean either one is right or wrong. So you were doing comedy and
Yes.
still working full time as a social worker.
Well, I want to say this. I think also people underestimate hobbies. I think sometimes we think of hobbies as, well, that's just a hobby. But I feel like if you have a career that either you have to have because that's what pays the bills, and jumping from that to do something else would be too difficult or too scary or whatever that is, I don't want people to underestimate what a hobby is. And that could absolutely fulfill that need alongside a job that pays the bills.
No, that's really good.
You know, for me, most comedians want to be on a big stage with lots of people and, you know, except for you. Most comedians want to be on this big stage and these arenas. And, you know, the thought of it is super scary. But for me, the more people in the audience, the better. But what I don't have is, like, I wouldn't turn down Ellen. Like, I wouldn't, if she were to be like, hey, somebody sent me a clip and you're really funny. Would you like to come on my show? Yes, I would. But I don't have these big, giant, like my end goal for comedy. I'd like to make money at it. You know, I've left my job so that I can be home with my kids more during the day and after school. So that when I have to leave in the evening or the weekends to do a show, that I've still spent a good enough amount of time with my kids because they're 8. And I feel like I've watched so many of those specials about people's lives. And so many of them say, I wish that my dad was around more, you know, or I wish that I was home more with my kids, but I was off. I had to work. I had to tour. And for me, nothing's wrong with that. But for me, I want my kids to know that I'm trying to do both. I'm not giving up who I am and what I want for my kids. I said that I wasn't going to do that even before I had kids. You don't think that, you know, you don't want to get a sitter and you want to be with your kids all the time and you want to travel with your kids all the time. Yeah, great. Lovely. But me, I'll be home with you for a little bit and then somebody else will be with you for a little bit.
That's so good. You left your job or you retired so that you could have more time with your kids. And at the same time, you are very much the type of mom and the type of person that I know who will go do this show and go do that show. And you're still very much yourself. You're a very present mom and you're also still very independent outside of being a mom.
One, you know, I grew up with a mom that worked a lot and she made sure we had food and we had hot meals and we sat at the dinner table and had dinner together. But I feel like there was things that my mom would have wanted to do that she didn't do. And you can blame your kids for that all you want to, but thing is I'm the parent.
Mm-hmm.
So like for instance, today my husband works. I had a haircut appointment. I leave the house to get a haircut. And then I realized, you know what? I think after I get my haircut, I still want to have some time to myself. So I arrange for a sitter. I get home to come here to do this with you. And my kids and my sitter are here and she's picking them all up. And they're like, well, Mom, what are you going to do? Nothing with you. That's what I'm going to do. Carry on.
Yeah.
Carry on. You know, you're going to go hang out with cousins and play video games or whatever it is that you boys do. Like, that's what you're going to do. You're going to go out and have fun with your friends. We spend all morning together. And then at the end of the day, we will come back together and we'll have dinner and we'll spend the rest of the evening together, snuggled up on the couch, watching something on Netflix that makes you happy. And I know the way I am doing it and the way that I'm choosing is partly because, again, my mom was a single mom. And I know that there are things that she wanted to do in her life that she felt she couldn't do. Also, not having kids until my mid 40s means that the majority of my friends have grandkids my kids' age now, right? And I've watched lots of friends throughout the years struggle. You know, I don't want to leave him because of this, or I can't do this because I got the kids and I don't want to go anywhere. Or friends that are like, you know what? I don't want to go anywhere without my kids. I want to be home with my kids. And so however you want to do it is however you're going to do it. It's why I started my Facebook Live. I feel like a bad mom because there are certain norms, whatever those are, right, that make you feel like you can't be this certain way and do this certain thing as a mom. Look, my number one are my husband and my kids. But even more so than them, I am my number one. I'm my real live number one. Because if this number one right here is not happy, woo-wee. Oh, how
nobody.
Shoot, down to the dog.
If mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy.
No, it's happy wife, happy life, happy mama, happy life, like happy neighbor, happy life. I'm just saying happy pet owner, happy life. just whatever mom you decide you want to be, just be that and just stand firm in what that is. Don't worry about what everybody else is doing on Facebook, looking like they're all the happy moms with their happy homeschooling.
Yeah, at the time of this recording, we're coming out of the kids being homeschooled from quarantine and coronavirus and all that stuff. So, whereas you used to have more time because your kids were in school or they had after school activities or whatever, all of a
Yeah,
sudden
I
you're
never
their
got that,
teacher.
AJ. I retired on a Thursday, and on a Friday, the school said, "Oh, by the way, your kids can't come back." I'm like, the heck they can't. My kids will be at school on Monday morning. I don't care who's there. The janitor, the superintendent, the homeless guy that hangs out down the street. I don't care who's going to watch them, but they're not going to be here from the hours of 8:30 to 2:30. It was difficult. And even in that, again, what do we do now? We've got to figure this out because my kids, they have to be educated. They have to learn. So those are the sacrifices, right? I got a couple of people that came in a couple days a week to help out in areas that I knew I wasn't very good at and that I couldn't teach three at a time because my boys are boys. I needed somebody else. So I had somebody else come in so that I wasn't doing it by myself, or my husband and I weren't just doing it with each other. You know, I've got these villagers and I used them all so that all of us could get through it without killing each other. And we made it. We made it. And I don't know what's happening next year, but you can put my kid in a hazmat suit and send him to school. I'm fine with whatever you want to do.
Yeah, that's crazy. So it's interesting because I like how you, in your story, you're talking about like preparing yourself and what you're hoping for and essentially living your life and not just waiting around for what you're hoping for it to happen.
Right.
The reality is, even what you're hoping for, even if you get it, it might not be what you thought it would be or what you originally envisioned, or it might be, I'm sure, like you even getting married and having kids, I don't think that you thought, oh, I hope it's triplets first try.
I wanted twins. I will tell you that.
Did you?
I
Oh,
did. Because I didn't get to grow up with my twin and I really wanted to be able to at least live
yeah.
somewhat part of that. So I'm ecstatic about the triplets. I mean, it's a lot of work, but it was great. But I will tell you that as much as I was waiting and hoping for a marriage, marriage is hard. You don't know this yet because you've been there just for a minute. But I always said, you know, marriage is the best fight that you'll ever fight, to keep
That's
it
good.
going and to keep it alive. My husband and I are very, very similar, but we are more different than we are similar. We definitely struggle through trying to figure each other out. I was talking to somebody yesterday about this, and I realized that although we've been together for 9 years, because we got pregnant right away and then I delivered early for all you people that are like, you know, she was pregnant before she was pregnant. No, I wasn't. Calm yourself down. But we really have only had, if you think about it, you know, from 0 to, I don't know, 4 or 5 even maybe, you're still so hands-on with your kids. And there's just not a lot of time for us. And we do the best we can. We end our night in bed together every night. Every night. We are there and he may be watching sports and I may be answering emails, but we are next to each other in bed, touching to some capacity so that we are with each other. But within those first 5 years or so, right, you can't just say, hey, breakfast is on the table, go eat. Not with 2, 3, 4, 5 year olds. No. Hey, go get yourself dressed. No, then you're going to get the shirt goes on your head, honey. The shirt, see how mommy's shirt is? The shorts, just let me get you dressed myself, right? So there wasn't really a lot of time for Loris and I to work out all of these kinks. And then, so now we're really only kind of 4 years into marriage, really, if you think about it, right? We're just kind of into it now where we can say our kids are going to go to a friend's house and we're going to have a date, or we got to figure out this argument because the kids are right here. How are we going to do that? You know what? You guys go out, let mommy and dad talk about it, right? So we're just really kind of getting in the groove of what all that is. And that's part of what that hope and waiting, that's part of what are you doing while you're waiting? How are you getting yourself ready? Are you sad? Are you mad with every other person that you know is getting married and having kids? Does that make you really angry? And I understand that. I wasn't that person, but I get how that could feel. I get it. I understand it. And there's other areas in my life where I may be waiting for it and it's not coming. And then it comes to somebody that you know and you're like, oh, okay, well, guess it's not just me. I'll just wait here. I'm here just waiting for it to happen. But what are
It's
you going to do during that time? Are you going to sit and mope or are you going to get yourself ready so when it comes, you can be the best at it?
yeah. And I like how you said, like for you or for this particular story, it was about marriage, but it could be about whatever that thing is that you're hoping for,
Yeah.
for anybody. I mean, even as you were explaining that, I feel like that's even applicable to comedy, right? Even if you have friends that are in the comedy industry, it's so easy, unless you catch yourself, so easy to see what other people are doing or what other opportunities they get and then be like, what? What?
Yeah.
What about me?
Yeah.
Oh, so what are you going to do in that time? Are you going to just choose to say, congratulate them and then move on and do your work and put your time in and hope that your thing comes, but you still work while you hope? Or are you just going to sit and pout and whine, which isn't going to get you much further or even get you what you want or hope for any sooner?
But then when you get there, then your attitude could certainly be, well, it's about time.
Yeah.
I worked just as hard as he did or she did or they did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Part of this for me comes from just early on, just not being so unsure of myself. And when you have a child that is in foster care, and I was in, several different foster homes before I was finally adopted. And so, how do you find yourself? When life at a young age is disrupted, we call it trauma, in the social work business, but, that trauma doesn't have to be abuse. That trauma could be anything. But when you've got this disruption of adults in your life that you're supposed to be looking at and learning from, that's disrupted and you don't know why. And even if somebody were to explain it to you, you can't tell a 2 or 3, 4-year-old that you're not going to live at that house anymore. All you know is that, well, gosh, I guess I did something wrong. You know what I mean? So it took me a long time to get to a place where I just was able to say, yeah, I'm good enough for this. And just because that person over there got something that I wish that I would have gotten, I may still feel a little bit of like, man, I would have liked to have been right there on that stage. I still got to work for it. And I got to work for it knowing that it could happen or that it could not happen. But in the end, it sounds super cliche, but in the end, I know how hard I work and I know areas that I need to work way harder in. It's either going to happen or it's not. I spent a lot of years just unsure and unhappy and trying to do things differently and trying to do things the wrong way or that way or his way or her way or their way. And yeah, I'm in a marriage, so I got to do a lot of things our way, right? But I don't want to be unhappy just hoping and waiting in a sad state.
Yeah.
I want to be hope and waiting, not hope and hating. That was good.
That is good. That's a good subtitle.
I don't want to be a hater. I don't want to be a hater.
At what point was there like a shift, a light bulb went off? Because you talked about growing up, especially going from foster home to foster home, and that having a lot to do with not being sure of yourself or insecurity. And obviously, like at some point in your life, there was some sort of switch where you grew into the person who was like, no, I am worth it and I am valuable.
I grew up in the church and moved away from it and then came back to it at about 29 or so. And so that relationship with God is major. It's everything to me. And so through that, I was able to just meet and be around lots of just really great people. And I think also it doesn't have to be the older you get, because I've met some 20-year-olds that are just, man, like if I'd have just had half of that confidence at 20, to be able to say, no, I'm not going to be your friend because you suck. Like, you know what I mean? I always tell people now at this age, like I'm at the second half of my life. So what I will tell you is if I don't care for you, I will very nicely bow out. I don't need the drama. I don't need it all. I don't have to have it all. So I think it wasn't that there was a moment. There was just more of moments, just people in my life and watching and observing. And I've had the same best friend for 25 years who is amazing. Just amazing. And so that relationship too has really helped me to understand that there is longevity in people in your life that are not just going to come and go and that really are going to love you selflessly, are going to love you because you deserve to be loved. People in my life that just do nice things and love me for Lisa because they love me for Lisa, good and bad. People that are also able to say, hey, you're kind of loud. And I realize that you probably can't control a lot of that volume in your voice. But when you're here in this building, you may want to bring the tone down, as opposed to people that are just afraid and not telling you, things that you can improve in and how things can be better in your life. So I just surround myself with those people. And I'm very, very self-reflective. I'm constantly working on myself for who I want to be for me, not who I want to be for somebody else. all those people in my life, all of my villagers, right, have come around me to teach me, yeah, that I'm phenomenal, that I'm great and I'm worth it. And I got more self-esteem. If I could sell it, I would be rich.
That's so good. Like even hearing you say it, like it frees something up in me to be like, yeah, I'm phenomenal.
You're
I
phenomenal.
might, I might not be able to say it as loud yet, but it's like so freeing to hear other women own their worth and their story, even if part of their story does involve feeling less than or feeling overlooked, but having reached that point where they realized who they are and what they're worth, and that they can just say that proudly. And it sounds like from what you're saying, what has helped with that so much is the people that you surround yourself with.
Yeah. It's not a bad thing to say,
Yeah.
I'm freaking great. But you know what? It's taken me a long time to get here, and I worked very hard to get here. And every day I continue to work on my phenomenalness.
Phenomenalism.
Phenomenalism. And that's a shirt. Like I work on it. I work on it daily. I work on better being a friend and an employee and a mother and a trainer and a sister. And I do. But there are some times, like I've had to unfriend 2 people this week for the first time on Facebook. And for me, it's major. May not be for other people, but for me, it's a big deal.
It's definitely the year to do it.
Yeah, yeah. But it just was one of those things where you're going to share your opinion, I'm going to share mine. You're going to share your thoughts, I'm going to share mine. You're going to share the research that you found, I'm going to share mine. If at any point in there you're going to get ugly and nasty, bye, Felicia.
Yeah.
That's it. I don't have to have you in my life. You don't have to have me in yours.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from my husband and my kids and, some few close people in there that I would probably not let be out of my life. It goes back to that really kind of hope and waiting. It goes back to what are you doing with your time? And whatever it is that you're doing with your time, if you really feel good about it, as long as you're not doing any harm to people, right? So when I say be you and do you, but be kind.
Yeah.
Be nice in that. And so in my hope and waiting, in what I did in that time is I really developed my relationship in Christ because God is love. And that's what I want to be. And he loves us regardless of where we're at. Whatever we do, he loves you. It's not anybody else's to say that God doesn't love somebody else. And then I loved people and allowed people to love me in a way that wasn't self-serving for them, that was a mutual love and respect and caring for each other. That's what I did in that time. And it was 7 years. It's not that I'm not doing it now, but I specifically took that time. I didn't know it was going to be 7 years. I would not have agreed with God if he would have said 7 years. I would have said, thank you. I'll just continue to ruin relationships on my own because I'm great at that. Thank you, Jesus. Peace. After the first year, you're like, all right, well, this dating thing is really, really hard to not do. And then year 2, you're like, celibacy. Huh. Not really liking this. Okay. And then by year 3, you're like, yeah, whatever. This is good. I got it. So just work on kind of being who you're going to be, but being kind and being nice. And if you don't want to be, then don't complain because who wants to be around you if you're not nice?
That's good. If you don't want to be, don't complain.
Thanks so much for listening, everybody. I am losing sunlight here, so we're going to go ahead and check out. But be sure to tune in next week because Lisa, she's not going to share another story. We're just going to continue the conversation, specifically addressing the current climate that we're in and talking about all of the racial issues and how that's playing itself out from what we see on the news and from personal experience in the cities that we find ourselves in, and Lisa specifically with her kids, just what it's like from their personal perspective. So again, it's not going to be an angle, it's not going to be a point to prove, it's somebody's story and somebody's experience as they've lived life. So I'd super appreciate it if you tune in next week because that's going to be a great conversation, and I'm really grateful that Lisa would take the time to have it with me. So hey, thanks for hanging out with me in the back of my car out on the road. For those of you that want to see the shots, hop online. And don't forget about our virtual show this coming Sunday, August 23rd at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, PST, not to be confused with CST, which is what I thought stood for California Standard Time. Yeah, I thought that up until this year. So hopefully we'll see you Sunday. Thanks, guys.